G'day everybody, welcome to Pub Yarns. KLP still absent as we're on different shifts, and today in Queensland it's a public holiday. So that's also froze to spend on the work, but hopefully next week, the week after, we should be all back together again, so all good. So this week we're going to kick off with round 9 recap. First up was the Dogs versus the Cows. This was a 50-50 game, but the looks like the arm wrestle went towards the Cows. They were neck and neck in the last 15 minutes. The Cows put on 16 unanswered points, and they come around the winners 28-12. Storm come up against the informed Dolphins. It was another 50-50. Storm come out first up, and Harry, with one of his signature moves 15 minutes before half time, was held up and was denied any sort of score there. Next minute, the Storm takes the ball back on their 20-metre line, runs the length of the field, which took the Storm to 10-0, and then just before half time, the Finns go in and made it 4-10 Finns way at the break. After half time, the Finns put on another 24 points to win 28-10. Next game in was the Titans versus the Raiders. The Titans had a 43-57 disadvantage over the Raiders. It was a 50-50 sort of jump out. The Raiders got the jump. They went 16-0, and at the break they were 16-6 Raiders way. The second half went about the same way, and the Raiders came away 28-12 winners. So it's good to see Ricky didn't lose his mind. Eels were in the game right up until the 16th minutes to go at 14-18, and then we saw the Eels of old, and the Wars doubled their score to win 36-14. Once again, the Eels imploded after giving away 2 intercepts, which the Wars ran from one end to the other. The Eels need to find some discipline and find it now, otherwise the Eels and St George will be playing for the Spoon Bowl on the last game. Keep an eye out for that one. Alright, the next game in was the Broncos versus the Chooks. Looks like tipping the Chooks to win the comp at $7.50 was a good thing after all, as they showed up against the Broncos. The Chooks went out 24-0 at the break, scored again just after half time, and they were 30-0. Then the Broncos made a bit of a comeback to be 30-24, so it looked like they were going to win the game until Stags got sent off and the Roosters put on another 8 points, and that was that. So the Chooks win 38-24. Alright, the next game in was the Knights taking on the Rabbits. The Knights jumped out early with a nice little 30-16 head start, and with the likes of Ponga and Brown playing a fairly good game. But within 7.5 minutes to go, the Rabbits converted the try, which put him at 38-16 Rabbits way. But the Knights found a way with the Newcastle chant going up with 6 minutes left on the clock. They scored and ended their 3-game losing streak. And they ran away with a 42-36 win over the Rabbits. Alright, the next game seemed like it was going to be a 50-50 game, but the Sharks were on point and the Tigers gave up far too much football, and the score reflected that with a 52. Another 50-50 game was the Sharks versus the Tigers, but the Tigers gave up too much ball, and the score reflected that with a 52-10 point win by the Sharks. Another 50-50 game was the Sharks versus the Tigers, but the Tigers just gave up too much ball and the Sharks were just far too much on point. And that reflected in a big score, with the Sharks being 52 and the Tigers 10. Next game in was the Panthers versus Manly, and the Panthers came in super favourites here, but Manly stuck it to them and did lead at one stage at 16-12. Manly played really well, but the Panthers just did enough and came away the winners 18-16. And the last game was the Dragons, played really well, also came away winners with 2 points, their first 2 points of the season. So well done the Dragons by beating themselves while having the bye. Alright, let's move on to round 10. First game out is the Finns versus the Dogs. The Dogs have lost 3 in a row, and apart from that win against the Panthers, they are not looking very good. The Finns seem to have a little bit better on the edges, and Hammer is playing really well, and so is a couple of those guys. The Finns did get beat by the Panthers, but only by 1. This was a 50-50, but they are playing at Suncorp, which will get the Finns home. Finns by 6. Roosters versus the Titans. The Chooks are going far too strong. Teddy and DCE are playing really well, and I have some money on the Chooks to win the grand final. So for me, Chooks by 16. Next game in is the Cows versus the Eels, and the Cows are at home, and the Eels have a heap of injuries. I cannot see the Eels doing anything special here, and Drinkwater and Dean are on fire. I probably think the Cows would probably win by 30, but I'm taking the Cows by 14. Alright, the next game in is the Saints versus the Knights, with Ponga back and Brown playing well, and the Saints just coming off a bye. I would like to say this is anybody's game, but the Dragons are just no good this year, and the Knights are at almost full strength. I see the Knights running away with this, but not by much. Knights by 8. A little harder this one with the Souths up against the Sharks. The Sharks put a number on the informed Tigers last week, and the Rabbits lost to the Knights. I think the Sharks will be getting some momentum out of last week's game from what I can see. This is a 50-50 game, but I'm going with the Sharks. Sharks by 2. Manly up against the Broncos. Manly played a really good game against the Panthers last week, but the Broncos are getting some players back. But they're also losing Reynolds and Staggs. This is another 50-50 game. But as I said at the start of the season, Manly for the spoon. So I reckon that will be good enough here. And the Broncos need to get back in the saddle and start winning and win big. This is a treat for both teams, but I reckon Broncos by 1. Alright, next up is the Storm versus the Tigers, and the Storm has never lost 7 games in a row, so this could be uncharted territory for them, but Bellyache has finally put up his hand and says he's not 100%, and so I reckon there'll be some help from other people there helping him out. In saying that, the Tigers are going good also, but a couple of injuries which could help the Storm in the end. I'm going to go Storm by 4. Last out is the Raiders versus the Panthers. The Panthers have had a couple of scares over the last few weeks, and other teams are starting to work them out. But I cannot see the Raiders diverting off their plan to try something new and try and knock the Panthers off. And the Panthers are far too clinical. Panthers 16. Panthers by 16, easy. Alright, let's talk about the ladder. Alright, it's ladder time. And it looks like George is still out in front. She did look like she was going to get 8 from 8 again this week, but Sunday took care of that and she ended up with 6. Still on top. And second place now is Katrina. She's consistently getting 7s, which is, clip-clopping along. She's in second spot now, only 1 point behind. And 1 point behind them is Trevor and Nats, just sneaking out there on 45 points. And on 44 points comes Lynette, Lachlan and myself. Lynette's probably had a little bit of a drop-off. She only got 4 this week, coming off the 8 last week. So anything can happen. And for those who are coming last, Dave, who are on 31 points, don't stress out, buddy. There's still 18 rounds to go, and anything can happen. You only need a couple of 8s, and you're on toast. Alright, recap time. I've got the Finns by 6, Chooks by 16, Cows by 14, Knights by 8, Sharks by 2, Broncos by 1, Storm by 4, Panthers by 16. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave your tips in the comments down below, and I will see you all next time.